Hello everyone and welcome back to RCC Let's Talk. I'm Kaitlyn, one of the school guidance counsellors here at Ryan, and today I'm joined by Malcolm, one of our school teachers.
Good morning everybody.
And a very special guest, Danielle. Danielle is a psychologist that has worked in the area of child and adolescent mental health for over 25 years and works for us now at Townsville Catholic Education. Welcome, Danielle.
Thanks, Kaitlyn. I'm excited to be here.
So today we're talking about something many parents of teenagers eventually find themselves navigating. That stage where your child begins moving forward towards greater independence and suddenly you're trying to work out, how much do I hold on and how much do I let go?
And if you've recently found yourself wondering whether your teenager has moved into a new species altogether, you are absolutely not alone. Parenting teenagers can feel a bit like you've been driving a car comfortably for years and then one day somebody changes all the controls without telling you. It's a bit like that scene out of the movie Inside Out, but for parents.
Exactly. I was speaking with a parent recently who said, my son used to tell me every detail of his day and now I ask, how was school? And I get one-word answers, fine, good.
Yeah, that's if you're lucky you might get a second word. But one thing we often remind parents is this: teenagers don't need us less, they just need us differently.
Adolescence is really a period where young people begin asking themselves some important questions. Who am I? Where do I fit? What do I think? They're gradually building an identity that sits separately from their family, and naturally that means they begin pulling away a little.
Well, and that can sometimes feel really personal. Parents can think, why don't they talk to me anymore? Or why don't they want me around? But often they aren't rejecting you. They're actually just stretching and they're practicing their independence.
I think where many parents get stuck is wondering, if I give them more independence, how do I stay connected? Because there can be a fear that if we loosen our grip, we lose our relationship.
And this is where something really important comes in that we talk a lot about. It's a thing called micro connections. So sometimes as parents, we think connection has to be a really big thing. We imagine those long family dinners where everyone is sharing feelings, making eye contact, like in the movies. And if you have teenagers listening right now, they're probably laughing at that image.
Please stop asking me to discuss my emotions over lasagna.
Exactly. So connection with our teenagers can often happen in those tiny moments rather than in the big moments. These micro connections are those small little interactions that say, I see you, I notice you, I'm here. And they can be surprisingly powerful.
So Danielle, can you tell us a little bit about what that might look like?
Absolutely. So it could be sitting beside them for 2 minutes while they're scrolling through their phone and asking, hey, show me that video you're laughing at, but not in that I'm monitoring you kind of way, but in a more relaxed kind of way, like, hey, that sounds funny. What is it? It also might be driving them when you're driving them to sport and not launching into 20 questions. Sometimes it's just having a shared space. It could be small things like making their favourite hot chocolate or snack and leaving it near them while they're studying or on that game. One of my favourite things is sending a funny meme to our kids via their social media platforms. And yes, you will get an eye roll or a, God, why did you send me that response? But they do notice. And then there's other things like just sitting down for 10 minutes and watching a show that they love and asking, what's happening here? I've got no idea. Help me to understand.
Danielle, one of my favourites when I was had my kids at school was the car trip home. What did you learn at school today?
Yes.
Nothing. Do you have any tips to get a little bit more out of the kids than nothing?
Sometimes it's about sharing a bit of what your day is or, those bigger questions, what made you laugh today? But sometimes it's just about acknowledging that they've had a tough day at school and maybe they just need that silence to decompress after the day.
Yeah, fair call.
And I recently had a parent describe it beautifully to me, and they said, I've stopped expecting deep conversations at dinner because I realised my son likes talking in the car. And suddenly that she'd noticed that side-by-side moments became easier than face-to-face moments.
And there's absolutely psychology behind that too. So young people often talk more when they don't feel pressure, when we're not when they don't feel like they're being interviewed, like, how are you, how's school, bit like what we were just talking about before, Malcolm.
Yeah, exactly.
Anything you want to tell me.
Yeah, restructuring the way you ask that question.
Yeah, it can feel really like an interrogation. So it's about finding those moments. So it's when you're either walking the dog or driving somewhere or making dinner, or hopefully they're helping you unpack the dishwasher. Somewhere where conversations can often appear unexpectedly because you're side by side to each other rather than directly across each other. They also begin in this phase around the late night conversations. So just as you're heading to bed or actually in bed, they'll come over and linger and start to chat. And you're absolutely exhausted after the long day and want to go to sleep. But there's psychology around why they start to do this too. So during the day, they're managing all those schools, the friendships, the expectations, and their own internal experiences. At night, when everything settles down, there's finally that space to feel. And more importantly, that's where they feel safer. It's quieter, it's more private, and there's a lot less pressure, which makes it easier for teens to be vulnerable in that space. It's also important to remember that your teen isn't actually avoiding going to bed, that this can actually, and this can be true when you find them scrolling on their phones or texting friends after they go to bed. It's about, don't lecture about screen time at midnight. It's about sitting on the edge of the bed and asking what's keeping you up. It kind of validates without immediately problem solving. The research on adolescent sleep and attachment is really quite clear in this space. Teens who experience consistent nighttime emotional availability from their parents show significantly lower rates of anxiety and depression, regardless of their sleep duration.
That's a really good idea for parents not to do that. I'm ready for bed.
Yeah.
Take that time, sit down, have a chat to your child at that time.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And it's super hard because you're exhausted yourself, but how do you show up for your kid in these moments, and how you show up matters. The first step is validation. So even if the timing is tough, your teen is choosing to come to you, and that really matters. It doesn't have to be complicated either. It can be as simple as, I'm really glad you told me that. That sounds like a lot. And of course that upset you. You don't have to try to fix everything. In fact, you probably shouldn't.
And the other thing we need to be clear about during this time in your young person's life is it doesn't mean about removing your boundaries. Teenagers actually really need their boundaries. They need times they need to be home, expectations around respect, their technology limits, what are the family values. Those things really matter and are crucial because boundaries do create safety. How we like to think about it is like a trampoline. The boundaries are the frame around the outside, and the freedom is the space where they can jump and grow. Without that frame, things become unsafe.
And one of the biggest shifts can be moving from managing your teenagers to coaching them. So instead of here's what you need to do, we can try what do you think your options are, what's your plan, and how can I help? Because our long-term goal isn't raising young people who need us to solve every problem. It's raising young people who know how to solve problems while knowing they still have support.
And if we could leave parents with one thought today, it would be absolutely this. As your teenager is learning how to become more independent, you're absolutely learning a new stage of parenting too. And some days you're going to hold on too tight, some days you're going to let go too quickly. Nobody gets that balance absolutely perfectly. And teenagers don't need perfection. What they need is connection, and what they need is boundaries. And they need to know that even if you're loosening your grip, you haven't disappeared.
And sometimes that connection isn't one huge conversation. Sometimes it's a 2-minute chat in the car, a shared laugh, a cup of hot chocolate, a ruffle of the hair, even if they are now a foot taller than you, and a small moment that says, I'm still here for you. So thank you for joining us today, and we'll talk to you next time.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.